Craig Counsell with some very stern comments about Ben Brown and his lack of performance in his last start against the Phillies. What does that mean to the rotation? Is this a guy that we need to kind of keep a circle on as maybe being short-lived as a starter for the Cubs? FanGraphs feeling pretty good about the Cubs' chances to make the postseason. They're one of the hottest teams right now in Major League Baseball with the momentum that they have. Are they a postseason team? Well, FanGraphs think that they certainly are. And our old friend Patrick Wisdom in Korea hitting bombs, which was what we expected, right? All right, like, subscribe, thumbs up. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Cubs baseball channel. And let's get this thing started. Let's get it going. Go Cubs. Everybody, Mick Gillespie, Cubs baseball channel. Thank you for being here and talking the Cubs with us like we try to do on a daily basis. And appreciate you so much for hanging. All right, let's get into this right now. By now, you know that the Phillies beat up on Ben Brown. He's the guy that they traded at the deadline to the Cubs for David Robertson. And he's the guy that right now is the fifth starter in the Cubs rotation. But 3 2/3 of an inning, 9 hits and 6 runs isn't good enough. A 6.09 ERA. Felt like he was kind of finally moving back in the right direction again. And then all of a sudden he's kind of fallen back where he's having some struggles. And it felt like Craig Counsell was kind of saying, hey, you know what? This isn't good enough, right? You got to step up. And I wonder if this is kind of a warning shot across the bow, or if it's one of those things where, you know, it's basically like, hey, I'm trying to get this guy motivated because we need him to be, one of our better pitchers. But he said, we need better, frankly, is what Counsell said. There's been some bright spots, and there is clearly some good things here, but 3 2/3, 4 innings. Fortunately, we've got some off days during that course of a normal part of the season. That's going to hurt you, right? Basically, interpreting that as he's like, look, you got to throw more when you're a starter than 3 2/3 innings. You got to get outs. You got to be someone that goes in there and is a bulldog. We've seen some really good stuff from Ben Brown. We weren't sure if it was going to be Ben Brown, Colin Ray, Javier Assad, who was going to be that fifth starter. The problem that the Cubs have had is now with Justin Steele out, you're dependent on this guy to go out there and get you some outs. And Javier Assad injured again. And so, he re-injured his oblique. Who knows what the timeline's going to be on him. And then, Steele's out for the year. And so is Cade Horton going to be ready? Jordan Wick's going to be ready. The Cubs got to look at Brown, and they need him to step up and be somebody. And you wonder if this is just a way for Counsell to kind of motivate this young guy and say, hey, man, this is what we need from you. Like, you got to step up and get the job done because the Cubs need him. And he's had a couple of games that just aren't good enough, including that last one against the Phillies. So Counsell trying a different tact. We'll see if Ben Brown responds or if he still has a lot of work to do before he gets there. Here's one that I really liked. FanGraphs has the Cubs up to a 66.7% chance to make the postseason. Who knows when you're watching it, what it is, but you get the idea. 48% at the start of the season. Now all of a sudden 67% basically to make the postseason. Kyle Tucker has been a huge acquisition for the Cubs. Obviously, they're going to be without Steele. The starting rotation's got to figure it out. But at the end of the day, what we know is that this Cubs team is scoring runs, that they're a tough out, and that they've got a belief that they're going to be able to make a difference in this postseason. And I think all of those things are good. And, you get a little production out of Dansby Swanson's bat, and who knows? This Cubs team could be a real formidable challenge going into the dog days of summer. But they still have a lot of work to do. They're playing the best teams in baseball, and they're actually hanging in pretty tough. The second thing's going to be getting better production against the teams in your division. You don't play them as much as you used to, but we're going to start seeing teams in the division here coming up. And I'm curious to see kind of how the Cubs respond to that as well. How are they going to play when they take on the Reds? How are they going to look against the Pirates? What about the Brewers? You got to beat those teams, and we'll see how that goes. But I think right now, when you look at the division, you feel very confident that the Cubs are the best team in the division, and that it's going to show up as far as their success rate goes. And I'm excited to see that. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about on the show today was you talk about the guys that leave and where they, end up and what they're going to do. How about this guy right here, Patrick Wisdom? Big dude, was on the bench for a while. I think we all really liked him, but, he can't play defense, and he strikes out a ton. But when he hits the ball, it goes, right? So he's with the Kia Tigers in Korea, and he's having a great start. 26 games. The dude's had 9 home runs, more than anyone else, 18 RBIs, 21 runs scored. He's becoming a fan favorite. He walked 20 times, and he struck out 25. So he's being patient at the plate. How cool is that, though? Sometimes you see these guys, and they struggle in the majors, but when they get an opportunity to go to Japan or to go to Korea, they figure it out. And sometimes they're even able to bring that back to the major leagues and have a pretty good end to a career because whatever they're learning over there translates. So pretty cool. I wish all these former Cubs the best, kind of as they move forward. And then you look around and you think, okay, how is this going to, kind of affect the Cubs moving down the line? Now, the final thing to kind of get into, and it's just I wanted to touch on the Cubs trading Gage Workman to the White Sox. It's the Rule 5 draft to me is so weird, right? Like you can't send them back, right? If they're not on the big league roster, but if you trade them to someone else, that's okay, right? So he stays in town. He goes to the White Sox. I wonder if he's going to end up being a really good player for them down the line. The Cubs just, they're not in a spot where they're going to develop players. I was surprised that Workman even made the team coming out of spring training. When he went to Japan, that was a surprise. And now he's on the White Sox for cash consideration. So watch him end up going over there. They're no good. Let him develop, and he could be a pretty good player. And, it'll be interesting to see kind of how that turns out. And then the final thing is the draft's coming up, and we now have an idea of how much money the Cubs can spend in the draft, right? When it comes to bonus pool. And so they're right there in the middle as far as how much money they have. $9.6 million to spend on draft picks. The bonus pool, sometimes it tells you, hey, look, if somebody's really good available, you're going to have to spend a little bit more. But 13 MLB draft picks with bonus pool, and the Cubs, have kind of been one of those teams that have been surpassed in their pool every year. What does that mean? The Cubs' first and second round picks have slot values of more than $1 million. First round pick, which is number 17, the slot value is $4.7 million. Second round is a slot value of $1.68 million. You don't have to spend all of that, but that's kind of where the value is. And we'll see, how does that affect everything, right? Who are they going to end up getting in those spots? And then, last year's pick, Cam Smith, traded him to the Astros, and he's on the big league team right now. So you can get immediate value now, which, in the past you weren't really allowed to trade those guys. Now you can wheel and deal, which makes it a little more interesting. It's still not like the NFL draft, which we watched a couple nights ago, but it's fun, and I think baseball needs to get to the point too, where they're trading draft picks and kind of making it a really fun event as they draft guys and move around on the roster. But that's it for the show today. I appreciate all of you guys for being here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Had a great weekend. Sorry that I missed you a couple days, but you know how it is, man. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll get back on a normal schedule. Love watching this team. I got to tell you this: 2 thumbs up for the Chicago Blues Cubs gear. I think it's fantastic. And I can't wait to get to Wrigley. And I'm starting to talk to some of my friends about coming out there and hanging out with you guys. I run into you guys, which is crazy. And you love the Cubs. And no matter where we're at, you guys pop up and say, hey, man, I watched the show. I'm a big Cubs fan. So why don't we all get together at Wrigleyville and, before a game, do a show, and then go to the game together. That's what I think we should do. Go raid the bleachers. But like, subscribe, thumbs up, get in the comments section. Thank you for being here, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Go Cubs.